Okay, so week one assignment, getting acquainted. I think it's safe to say that your book is very good about taking you step by step through each of these lessons, but I will make this video in an attempt to just make it that much easier and fewer excuses for not getting it done correctly, and also just to share some of my personal um, tips and strategies and opinions on things. So here we go. First thing, need to download the project files, as it says right here, peachpit.com. The access code is inside the first few pages of your textbook. I've already done that, so I won't show that. And anybody who has trouble with that, I guess we'll get touched on that in class. But I'm taking you now to the second step, proceeding through the Getting Acquainted lesson. So let's see here. First lesson shows us how to create an HTML5 document. And so going to Adobe Animate now, you can see when you open it, it says here HTML5 canvas. And now I'm looking at the book, as you should be doing. And it says one of the first things that catches my eye is changing the stage dimensions. Actually, they also talk about, probably at some point, changing the workspace. I'll get to that, I guess, in the order that the book gets at. So here, right here, you see on the side stage width. I think they're asking you to change it to 800 and 600. So that just makes a larger stage, the window through which the user will see whatever your project is. You don't want too small of a window. All right, so creating a new document, changing the stage size, playback environment, let's see. Playback environment says something about HTML5, WebGL. There's different sort of platforms or publishing formats that Flash will now, more so than in the past, they have more options. But now I'm moving on to page 5, getting to know the workspace. I personally have gotten really used to having my timeline up here. So let me go back to where I was. Oops, it looks like it changed what I was asking it to do. I think it was down here, yeah. So basically what I did is clicked on that tab and just drag it. I like it to be across the top. That's just because in the classic versions of Flash, if you don't know, Animate used to be called Flash. We had it across the top. And I also like the tools to be on the left side and not that wide, but more like this. And there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts that you'll need to get used to. Command 2, or if you're on a Windows machine, Control 2, will just zoom out. Like if I have something drawn on the stage, let's say, and I zoom in, and I'm working on this portion, rather than telling this that you want to zoom out by hitting the minus, I'm just in the habit of hitting Control 2. Also, if you just hit V on the keyboard, it grabs the most important tool, the selection tool. So those are things that I do. Actually, let me hit Command Z. And another thing, Command Return will publish it. And then you can just click this, but I'm on kind of a crusade, a campaign, if you will, to get my students to use the keyboard more often, shortcuts. So Command W will close that. So as you get to working on this, if you hit Command Return, and then once you see what it looks like, Command W, that is a good habit to develop. And then Command 2 zooms it back out. Alright, so let's see. Getting to know the workspace. Basically, that's what I just did, as I acquainted you a little bit with the fact that you can edit the workspace. But if you look at the diagram, it's worthwhile to learn what these things are called. The timeline, layers. These are the layers right here. You can add layers We'll get to that in a minute. We can get rid of layers too. The application bar, edit bar, properties panel. Properties panel is over here. In the past, I've gotten really used to having it down here, but I might try to grow to more accustomed to seeing it over here. And I'm getting a warning here, and I'm not sure. I've encountered this warning before, and we'll have to get to the bottom of it because I think everybody will probably get this warning until we figure it out. But moving on, choosing a new workspace. You can actually choose a new workspace, save a workspace. In fact, I should do that now. Now that I moved my toolbar and my timeline. Let me see what it says here. Where is the workspace? The place where you save the workspace. Here we go. Window. I just guessed it was under window because if you think about it, I mean, it is a window. And we'll say new workspace. And this will be pool workspace. Call it whatever you want. What this means now is I can switch back and forth. Classic. Actually, that's more like what it is. You can see now the tools are on the left. And let's see, another workspace might be Animator. That's the newer probably. Yeah, like that. But because I saved it, I can switch back to my workspace with ease. And you can click this to hide these windows. There's a color swatch over here. All right, so that takes care of not a whole lot to do with workspaces there, but that takes care of the general idea. About the stage, let's see. Click the content outside the stage. There's a number of things I guess you can read in the book about the stage. Oh yeah, it's showing the percent fit in window, 100%, show all. Command 2 kind of takes care of the fit to window. It's like a shortcut to fitting to the window. Command 3 does something else. Command 4, Command 1. Command 2 is the one that I like to use the most because I can then see everything. All right, working with the library panel. If you create symbols and things, they'll end up in the library. Right now I have nothing over there, but if let's see, F8 is supposed to do it. No, I'm on a Mac now, so F8's not doing what I'm used to it doing. So I'm going to right click and say convert to symbol. See, it says F8 is supposed to work, but for some reason on the Macintosh machines, the Apple machines, it's not working. So at some point I might figure out the workaround for that problem, but I'll just say item 1 and hit enter. Now you can see there's actually something in my library over here. So if I make another symbol, let's see, right click it, create symbol, I'll just hit enter. So every symbol that you create will show up in your library, and we'll definitely get into that more in the future. Let's see, also sounds. If you import sounds into Flash to use in your animation, your video game, your website, whatever you're using this to make, they'll show up in your library too. You can double click. If you double click it, it'll take you right to, and you'll be inside that symbol, by the way. If you notice now the structure here, scene 1 shows everything. If I double click, now you see I'm inside item 1. And inside item 1, I can't edit that symbol. I have to go outside of it. And then I can get into this one. You have to actually go inside. So right here across this bar, you'll see what symbol you're inside. So I can edit this because I'm inside it. If I go out here and I try to, let's say I try to erase something. Where's the erasing tool? No, that's not it. This is it. So if I try to erase It's going to look like I'm erasing, but as soon as I let go, it's not. And that can be frustrating for new users. You have to actually go inside. Once you're inside here, then when you erase, it actually does something. If I erase that, it's gone permanently. All right, so understanding the timeline, big deal. Each of these black dots is a keyframe. If I hit F6, I wonder if it's, no, it's doing the Windows thing. Or these keyboard shortcuts aren't working. I need to figure out why. But if I insert keyframe just using the mouse, you can see now there's 2 black dots. What this really means is that there's a moment where I like to think of them as like snapshots or photographs. There's 2 photographs now. I can make the second photograph different than the first one. And now you'll see when I click the first one, they're in that position. I click the second one, they're in that one. So there's a lot to be said about the significance of that, I guess. You can, I just dragged this. I should probably explain how I did it too. I'm going to drag this. You got to click it once and then let go. And then the next time you click it, because it's already selected, it will move. If you just try to grab it, like let's say now my selection is over here. If I just try to grab it and drag it, it's going to think, oh, you're trying to select. So there's certain little nuances you're going to have to get used to. Click once, let go, then drag. So if I move it over here now, what I'm basically telling Flash, or the Animate program, is that I want to see this photo for this long. That's what all these empty frames are. And then all of a sudden at frame 25, then I want their positions to switch. And maybe I can go out here and right click and say insert frame. Notice I say frame instead of keyframe. So it's not going to actually contain a dot. That's just basically telling Flash I want to go ahead and see what's in this keyframe for 5 frames. And so now if I hit Command Enter and it exports, it should show, yeah, for what, 25 frames they're in this position, and for 5 they're jumping to the other position. So I can also grab all this, let go, and then drag it over here wherever I want, and now it'll be kind of equal time in different positions. Okay, so those are some of the timeline things, and you can lock the timeline right here. You can lock it, and that makes it impossible to move stuff. And that's mostly important when you have multiple layers, and let's say you want to just select one item. You might lock everything and then unlock the layer that you want to work with. You can also hide it. So sometimes you just want to hide certain items, get them out of your way without deleting them. What else? You can change the name. So maybe this will be like my main item, and then I'll have different layers, you know, for different things. I can cut this. Let's cut this. I'm going to hit Command X, and I'm going to make another layer. This will be the X layer. Oops. And now up here is where I'll do Command Shift V. Command Shift V is a nice keyboard shortcut you'll probably want to memorize, where you basically tell Flash, I want you to paste it in exactly the same position as you copied it or cut it from. Obviously now it's doing something different because I have this here and a new layer with that there. So I would probably want to make an empty keyframe right here, insert blank keyframe, and that's where I would do Command Shift V, so that if I wanted to preserve the way it looked before, so that would mean I need to delete it from here. And now you see that this one's empty, and if I were to move this, I would do Command X, and then go up here, Command Shift V. So anyways, that's some basic idea of how the timeline with the layers and stuff work. And if you turn the page to page 12, you see they talk about renaming a layer, adding a layer, which I already did. You click this. You can also make a folder if you want to sort of put a bunch of items, a bunch of layers into a folder. That way you can expand and collapse it. Because sometimes you have a project where you've got a lot of layers, and that can be cumbersome to deal with. Let's make another layer here, layer 4, and then just practice deleting it by hitting the trash can, or you can right click and say delete layers. Okay, so that's adding a layer. Now I'm on page 14. So looks like they want us to make, I'm going to clear these things out, and I can't delete my last layer, so I got to make a new one before I select this one and hit delete. Now they're talking about, I'm going to delete these things out of my library too. And let's see, so now I think they're actually, I wonder if they've gotten started on the actual assignment yet. But all right, so it says adding layers, which I just did, and we'll call this background. That's what they're asking us to do. Background. And it says insert timeline layer. Double click then and type photo 1. Oh, okay, so they want you to make another one. We'll call it photo 1, then another photo 2. Okay, let's quit that. That popped up because of when I hit F8, I think. Alright, so we've got 3 layers. Background, photo 1, photo 2. Inserting frames, which I did talk about already. If you hit, well actually I can't hit F5 or it'll do something else, but if you say insert frames, notice now that's scooted over because I inserted a frame. If I select a multitude of frames and say insert frames, now it added that many. And now watch, if I select across all 3 layers and say insert frames, it scoots all of them. And then if I select a bunch of them on all 3 and hit insert frames, it does that. Likewise, if I select like this and say remove frames, it deletes all that. If I select all this big chunk here and say remove frames, it removes that many from all 3 layers. So there's a whole bunch of different things to get used to as far as dealing with the layers and the frames. Yeah, talked about selecting multiple frames on page 16. And moving on to page 17 now. They're talking about empty keyframes and filled keyframes. You can tell the empty ones, these are all empty. If I actually draw something on this layer, it will no longer look that way. And you can see better probably if I click off. Now that one's filled and the other 2 aren't because, yeah, and so this is being stored inside that keyframe. If I click over here and hit delete, notice it gets rid of that keyframe right there because basically Flash is showing the contents of this keyframe all the way out to this frame. So if I click anywhere in the middle and hit delete, it has no choice but to get rid of that item. Alright, so then they talk about moving a keyframe, which I already did, and removing keyframes, organizing layers in a timeline, creating a layer folder. You can create a folder as I mentioned before. You might want to, let's say I'm going to put all my photos inside here, so I just grab this one and move it up here, grab this one and move it up there. I can also, if you hold shift let's say you click photo 1, and then when you go to hit photo 2, if you hold down shift, it will select everything in between. Of course, we only have 2 right now, but if you had a whole bunch of them, you could do it that way. And I can move them out of that folder now or back into it. So just take a moment to practice that. Not a real big deal. I think I want to take them out. Or I could call it photos and put them all in there. That is definitely a possibility. Adding layers to layer folders. Yeah, we'll talk about that, what I just showed you. Cut, copy, duplicate layers. Cut, copy, paste, duplicating layers. So I could duplicate this layer by right-clicking and saying duplicate layer. And all the contents on the layer will duplicate, of course. Using the properties panel, if you position an item on the stage, let's say if I have an X, or not an X, a box, and I select it in the properties panel over here, it shows the X and Y positions. So if I type in 100 and hit enter, you'll notice it jumped over to where it's 100 pixels from the left edge. 0, 0 is the top left corner. So if I put 0 here and hit tab and hit 0 and enter, now it's in the upper left corner because, as I said, that is 0, 0. So if I put 20 and then hit tab 20, now it's 20 pixels over and down from the top left corner. I can also edit the size of the box, and there's literally tons of things you can do. In the properties panel, I can also select the color and do an alpha. They're not really talking about that, I don't think. I guess I'm getting excited about some of the things I know how to do. Let's say the stroke size, I can make it 5, and now you'll notice it's a lot thicker. And let's see what else they've talked about here in the book. Positioning an item or an object on the stage. Transform. Let's say if you hit, I think it's Command Control, or is it, I don't know about, I'm used to a Windows machine, but maybe it's Control Command S. No, Function Command S. Nope. Option Command S. There it is. So Option Command S on a Windows machine is Control Alt S. So Option Command S will open up this screen, and if you say 100%, then it's not going to change the size. But if you say 150, that's obviously going to increase the size. And if you do like 20%, it's going to rotate 20%. And you can undo that and then Command Option S. We could do -20. Oh, and Shift Tab will take us back up. I could do 80%, and now it'll get smaller and then rotate the other direction. So those are some things to get used to. I've used that scale and rotate panel literally thousands of times. All right, so that's at the bottom of page 23 that I just talked about. Let's see. So it looks like they're starting to actually get us to place things on the stage as per the assignment, and I guess I'm overlooking that. So on the background, they're going to want that JPEG that looks like wood planks or whatever. So drag the item to the library, photo 1 from the library on stage. All right, so let me delete that and bring this down. Clear. Close. I just closed the output. All right, Command 2. Now, where is my lesson 1 start background? I'm going to drag that to the library here. I'm not sure if it's going to let me. I'll just drag it on the stage. All right, and because I put it on the stage, it's now in the library. So that's good. And I'm going to also need guess I should grab all of these. I'm just going to do that trick I mentioned earlier. I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'll drag all of them. So now they're all in the library. I'll close this, and this background JPEG actually is supposed to be on this layer. So I'm going to delete that layer, and now I'm going to select the background layer and drag this on here. Now you'll see you can drag it around and try to position it. A couple different ways to deal with it. You could go over here and make sure it's 0, 0. Looks like it already did do that. But if you're looking for another way to do it, you can hit Command K. No, Command K, and now go over here. Hold on. Hit Align. Actually, you got to say to stage. So right here, to stage. Center, center. So center vertical and horizontal. That takes care of that, I guess. I mean, that's. So there's, as I said, as long as your picture is 800 by 600, then centering it like that will work. Otherwise, you could do match size. So you could do align to stage and then match size, which it already is. But let's say if it's smaller, like that, better not rotate it. So let's say it's smaller like that. I'll hit Command K, and then I say match size, vertically and horizontally, and then it centers. Alright, so on the background layer I now have that. I'm gonna assume that we're not gonna mess with that layer anymore, so I'm gonna lock it, and looks like next they want photo 1. So looking in the library, photo 1. Oops, I want to put it on its own layer. So I'm going to switch the positions of these by dragging it. And then photo 1 goes right here, kind of close to the left side. And then next looks like they want the photo of this probably on its own layer though, photo 2. So let me make sure I have it selected. Command X and go up to photo 2 and hit Command Shift X, or just Command V. Command V would paste it, but according to the way they positioned it in the book, it looks like that. So next they have another layer, and looks like they want a layer folder, so we're probably going to end up doing that. Photo 3. And so I'll drag photo 3. While you see the secret here is while I have photo 3 selected, I drag and drop it, and then it goes onto that photo 3 layer. So looks like they've just positioned it something like this. They do want a photos folder, so I'm going to go ahead and make that. Oops, wait a minute, that was a layer. I'm going to delete that and hit folder. So this will be photos. Now I'm going to select all these by holding Shift and then dragging them up. And now they're all inside that folder. And that gets us to the bottom of page 21. So now, page 22, cut, copy, paste, duplicate layers. Yeah. Okay, so I'm moving on to positioning an object on the stage. Looks like they want us to, I'm going to hide these layers except for this one, the crazy ride. And looks like they want, in the properties panel, type 50 for the X value. So properties panel 50 and 50 for the Y. And then press enter, yeah. So there it positions. In the transform panel, they want you to rotate it. So modify transform. This is the window that I mentioned before. So I'll just use that. They want us to rotate it -12. So -12, hit enter. Okay. Looks about like what they have. I'm going to hit Command 2 so I can see this whole screen better. Now moving on to the next one, I'm going to hide that one and unhide this one. And they say 240. So 240. And then they want the scale and rotate, rotation of 6. So I'm going to keep it 100, but rotate it 6. Okay, so now we hide that one, unhide this one. They say 360 and 65. And that's page 25 if you're following along. And then rotation of -2. So I'm going to hit Command S, Command Option S, and what they say -2. Okay, whoops, I accidentally shrank it to a -2. So let me do that again. 100% is what I need, and then -2 in the rotation field. All right, so that gets us to the bottom of page 25. It says using the Tools panel. Talks about drawing tools, editing tools, etc. So you can read that at your leisure in the book. It looks like they're okay. So I see they're focusing now on page 28. The timeline, what they've done with it. They're showing, I'm going to unhide these, and they've got the background photo 1 both appearing there, but these, looks like they've moved this 10 frames to the right, and then this one 10 more frames, so the 20th frame, and the whole thing goes to about 46 or so, or 47, I guess. It doesn't really matter, but so I'm going to right click and say insert frame. That way the whole thing lasts that long. And now if you look at how the timeline looks, if you drag it across the top here, you can see how it's going to play. You'll start off with that showing, then all of a sudden that'll show, and then that'll show, and that's the way they are asking us to do it. So it also looks like above the Photos folder we have another layer, Stars, and they start off with a blank keyframe because they don't want to see the stars yet, and then out here at the 35th or 36th frame they insert a keyframe. Insert keyframe, that way they can put the stars there at that point. So, oh, Polystar Tool, okay, so we don't import those, we just use the Polystar Tool. So okay, so we got Polystar Tool, Options, Star, and okay, so page 29 it says choose star, number of sides 5, and 0.5, so that's good. Alright, so now we will just draw us a star. Of course, we want it to be yellow if we're going to copy them. And alpha, because I changed it earlier, I need to change it to alpha 100. And looks like they probably just want us to make a bunch of different stars, different sizes and things. Okay, and they also talk about undoing steps. If I hit Control or Command Z, it will undo them. Command Y will redo them. And there's also a history. You can go through Window History. So Window History right here. and it will allow you to undo multiple steps and see kind of the whole history of what you've done. You can experiment with that. So, previewing my movie, I hit Command Enter, and now it's playing. And when it gets to the end of the timeline, it just loops back around. And if I wanted to make, let's see, if I wanted to make the stars not all appear at once, I could make, let's say, I could delete those and make a new one there, and then maybe I'll go out here and swipe across and say insert frame, and then insert keyframe here, insert keyframe, draw another star, and then insert keyframe, draw another star, insert keyframe. So this is deviating a little bit from what the book asked you to do, but I think it's worth experimenting with. So that we're basically frame by frame adding stars, and then instead of having them all appear at once, that's interesting. I double clicked it and then repositioned it, in case you're wondering. Maybe I'll just, whoops, Command Z. I meant to hit insert keyframe, but I ended up hitting blank keyframe, which basically gave us a blank keyframe. So we'll put another one, maybe right here, a little one. And now if we publish it, Command return, you'll see the stars show up one at a time instead of all at once. And it's nice to see the difference there. So let's see, how close to the end are we here? Modifying the content on the stage, stage resizing and content scaling. Yeah, you can change the size. Scale content. Okay, so if you change the size of the scale or size of the stage, there is a way to maintain the content will shrink too, and that's actually a somewhat new feature compared to the older versions of Flash. You can actually shrink the stage without having a problem with all the content staying larger. You can shrink or enlarge the stage, I should say. You can change it to even be bigger. Not a big deal, but could be useful to you if you ever need to do that. Now I'm moving on to page 34, auto recovery for backup. Not my concern really, but worth knowing. Saving an XFL document, etc. So basically, at that point, we're done, and you would need to, according to the assignment, they want you to save it as this. So I'm going to hit Command C, and over here I'm going to save. And by the way, I haven't been saving, which is actually a terrible habit. My habit is actually to save ferociously. You can see right here that I haven't saved it at all, and for whatever reason, because I'm making this screencast and I'm on some new equipment, I didn't save it once. And so that would be a terrible thing if it were a very serious project. The computer could crash, I could lose everything. So I should have saved it from the very beginning, and that is a habit I really encourage you to develop. I'm going to save as. I would even save it back when it was pretty much empty. Just save it. So I'll put my name and working copy. So that works, I believe. Oh, actually, it tells you to save it as an XFL. So we'll save that there. And then you got to zip those together and upload them to Blackboard. That concludes this lesson. Sorry the video is probably pretty long.